Hey guys, thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm going to start by saying I'm really nervous, so in case I forget, I'm going to look around at people. But good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Rishindra Sinha, and I'm a doctor by profession and a gamer by passion.
Hi guys, my name is Mohit Husani and I'm a filmmaker by profession and a gamer by passion.
And
We
we are
are
the
the founders
founders
of
of
Global
Global
Esports.
Esports.
But once again, what is esports, you may ask?
That's a great question, Mohit. Esports is a form of competitive video games where you have teams or individuals going up against one another in a competition.
Yeah, I mean, welcome to the 21st century, guys, where playing games competitively is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Where athletes, and yes, professional gamers are now called athletes, go up and they live in gaming houses with a full-time salary, with coaches and support staff, and they have an entire ecosystem built around them so they can play video games on stage.
Yeah, and it's not just the athletes, but also the content creators who stream their gameplay online on platforms like YouTube and Twitch and have millions of people watching over the world. These are some of the most influential people in the country, in the world, sorry.
Yeah, and rightfully so, right? Because they have the attention span of the coveted millennial audience. These are the 12 to 35-year-olds that are primarily on the internet. They don't read newspapers, they don't watch television, they don't care about magazines or billboards or signages. Most of them even have ad blockers on. So sponsors and brands don't know how to get to these audience, which is why social media influencers and digital marketing has flourished so much in the past few years.
Yeah, and it's more to say with gamers, whereas there's traditional social media influencers who have an average attention span of a few minutes, whereas whereas your gamers who watch their favorite streamers for a minimum of 2 hours a day, and these streams have intense engagements.
Yeah, and there are so many career opportunities that go into this entire ecosystem. It's not just about the athletes and the content creators. And
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the athlete, it's the entire ecosystem. There are so many job opportunities that exist, Well, whereas you can be a streamer, you can be a content creator, you can create a lot of things, right?
yeah, and the audience is growing year over year at 38% with more than 500 million viewers to watch these tournaments.
I think a lot to do that has fueled is the growth of the internet. Just like with the boom of the tech in Silicon Valley, it has also happened and the startup, the startup, the rise of startups in Silicon Valley, it has also happened in the world of esports.
Yeah, and this entire ecosystem has been fueled primarily by people that are either athletes or content creators themselves that have ended up forming these orgs and esports organizations to fill a void or a need in what they needed for themselves.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned because isn't that how we started? So both of us, go way back and we've been on the other side of the table where we've been professional players back in 2001 and 2002 where we used to play games, like Counter-Strike. And that was the time, honestly, where it was not even called esports. It was video game industry and the prize money was a mere 5,000 rupees.
Yeah, less than $100. And now you have tournaments like the Fortnite World Cup with more than $40 million in prize money. That's more than 300 crores. And then you have tournaments like the Dota 2 World Championship, the International, which had a prize pool of $35 million. Even in India, PUBG has seen crores of rupees worth of prize money.
Can you imagine winning 21 crores as a 16-year-old? Well, that's exactly what happened with Kyle Giersdorf, who's also known as Booga, who was last year's Fortnite World Cup winner. Most people don't earn that entire money in their lifetime, but he did it while still he was in school.
Yeah, and not just Kyle. There are hundreds of such people, now athletes and content creators, that have made a proper career out of this. They are making millions of dollars doing this as a full-time job.
Yeah, I mean, and it just doesn't stop there. There's so much back end that is involved because you don't need to, just get involved as a player. There's so much more you can do. Just as any traditional sport, you can see that there are only the players that you see on the field, but there's so much back end that goes who support and, kind of power this entire industry.
Yeah, and it's no longer just kids playing in the confines of their bedroom.
Yeah, it's kids now playing on giant stages in front of millions of people and are traveling across the globe to play tournaments. Yeah, this moves, it's moving at a rapid pace, and we need to kind of think that it's not just the computer games that are popular right now. There's so much happening in the mobile esports, which right now is pretty, great. Speak about Ninja, for example.
Yeah, so Ninja is one of the most prominent people in the esports industry, where he has more than 23 million subscribers on YouTube and millions across his other social platforms. He was on the cover of ESPN magazine for playing a video game, and he also played Fortnite at Times Square for New Year's Eve.
Yeah, let's not forget our very own version of Ninja, Naman Mathur, who's also known as Mortal, who has recently got 4 million subscribers and has been the face and the forefront of the PUBG scene in India.
Congratulations, Naman. 4 million subscribers is a pretty big deal. He has done a lot in the PUBG space and is evolving with a lot of the other content creators. Not just him, there are a bunch of content creators that are really making some great noise in PUBG. And there was a time when esports primarily meant that you need thousands of dollars worth of gear, and you are on computers, you need the high processing units, you need a great graphics card, you need a mouse, a keyboard, a stable connection. Now you can do all of that with the smartphone that's already in your pocket.
Yeah, and that's exactly the reason why India is the hub of mobile esports and has been producing great, mobile gamers who are out there, and mainly it's because of accessibility. With the price of smartphones dropping and the 4G data and internet becoming cheap, it's opened up doors for esports that didn't exist a few months ago.
Yeah, with esport viewership with more than 500 million, the prize money has been paid out more than $1 billion in the year 2018-2019. The gaming industry as it stands today, you can go on to the next slide. The gaming industry as it stands today is at $139 billion. That is where you have, you can go to the next slide as well, sorry. Where you have the movie industry, the worldwide box office at $42 billion, the music streaming industry and album sales at $19 billion, you have the NFL at $15 billion, you have MLB, that's Major League Baseball, at $10 billion, NBA at $8 billion, and the NHL at $5 billion. All of this combined is $99 billion. That is still $40 billion short of the gaming industry. That's what the scale is as of right now.
I guess it's safe to say that it is becoming a well-established fact that esports is the next big thing that it in the years to come. And not just that, it's going to be, one of the things that is going to create an impact outside of your traditional sports.
Yeah, gaming is no longer a niche. With more than 2 billion people across the world as casual gamers, it can't be ignored. The career opportunities in gaming are absolutely endless.
Yeah, technically it's not even mainstream in that matter. So talking about the career opportunities, there's so much more that you can do in esports. Like I was saying earlier, more than just playing the game, so you basically don't even need to be one of the gifted, one in a million gifted players who kind of performs better than anyone else, or on the other side to be a content creator who has millions of following. All you need to do is, let's take a game like cricket, for example. Just as you can be a cricketer, there's so much more that goes, right? So in esports, there's also so many other career opportunities. You can become an athlete, a content creator, a streamer, a coach, and an analyst, a shoutcaster, a commentator, a team manager, a community manager, a talent scout, part of the legal department, or an editor, a graphic designer, a videographer, and the list just goes on.
Yeah, the opportunities in esports are endless, and a lot of these job profiles didn't exist a few years ago. This is absolutely new, and that is why you see a lot of entrepreneurs coming up in the esports space, creating a lot of new startups. I mean, the esports space is absolutely hot and happening right now, and it's testament to entrepreneurship. I think Drew Houston, the founder of Dropbox, puts it perfectly, where being an entrepreneur is a lot like being on the edge of your comfort zone, where you are either barely qualified or not qualified at all to do what you're doing. So it's kind of like jumping off a cliff and having to build a parachute before you land.
Yeah, I think a lot of things that we had to, do and learn in this space came out of experimenting, and a lot was it by trial and error. A lot of things that we spent 6 months doing, and the time and resources that we spent doing, someone who can enter right now will immediately be able to skip the learning curve and jump right ahead and save that time and resources.
Yeah, for example, we pitched to more than 200 investors over the past year and a half before we got our seed round in funding. That means we've opened up the floodgates to all future entrepreneurs who want to do something in the esports space. We have now spent our time and resources educating investors and teaching them about what esports is all about.
Yeah, I mean, imagine speaking to the investors was such an amazing thing, but also one of the hardest times in our life. So imagine the two of us, okay, who are kind of like in a sports jersey, sitting in front of 50-year-olds who are really experienced in finance and in the startup space, and we are convincing them why they should give us money so we can pay teenagers to play video games full time. I mean, it just sounds crazy, right?
Yeah, it was absolutely insane. Trying to convince investors why they should give us their hard-earned money so that we can take that money and give it to kids, pay them a full-time salary so they can move into a gaming house. We cover all their meals and their utilities so they can travel across the globe and compete in tournaments. We give them access to an entire support staff, coaches, analysts, so they can strategize and get better at the game. Guys, remember, we're all talking about a video game here. And then you also have content creators. We have PR teams and social media managers that work with these content creators, editors that put up all these videos online on YouTube. It's an entire ecosystem that we are working towards building. And when we told investors we want their money to do this, their expression was priceless. I wish we had a hidden camera in that room to capture that expression. That would be great content.
Yeah, I think that would be great. One of the things that we really had a hard time cracking was when we went to these startup pitches, all we had was 20 minutes to pitch our idea. Where most of the startups get that 20 minutes, we had to utilize 15 minutes to kind of establish and first describe what esports is before actually getting into what we do. And it honestly was a great disadvantage because whereas other people were competing with different peers in the same field, we had to not compete with esports organizations but with other startups that were doing different, kind of raising their funding in different spaces like tech, food, and finance.
Yeah.
So it counted, we had to kind of use a lot of sleepless nights to make these presentations and, make the magic happen.
Yeah, talk about sleepless nights, that hasn't ended. You can ask any of our family and friends. We still spend a lot of sleepless nights persevering and doing what we do. I think that's the key takeaway here, that we need to dedicate all our time and attention to following our dreams and our passion. And for us, that was gaming. I remember I played my first game when I was 3 years old back in my parents' hospital on a black and white computer.
Yeah, and I started with my elder brother as the player too in the same year on an Atari console. Back then, gaming was not what it is right now, and both of us grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same school, and that was it. We love playing video games.
Yeah, and I think 25 years of friendship has led us to that. In fact, his brother was the one that took us to a LAN cafe where he first introduced us to Counter-Strike, where we completely were enamored by that entire experience. We later went on to play professionally Dota as well.
Yeah, and with the advent of broadband coming into existence, we moved on to playing online video games. Ragnarok Online being one of the games that was very close to our hearts. We spent, I think, a lot of our childhood playing that game, and we ended up becoming the best in the country.
Yeah, so much so, where we started emailing the developers of the game feedback as to what we thought would be a better version of the game and how they could make the game better. I'm sure they get millions of emails every day, so we got no response. So we decided to take matters into our own hands. We worked with developers and we created an entire team to build our own version of the game. We went through online tutorials and every resource we could find, because we didn't have too many resources. We were school kids back then, but created our own version of the game. And then from 2007 to 2009, that game grew on to be the #1 private game in the world, and we made a decent amount of money for teenagers.
Yeah, and mind you, this was all, something that we loved to do as a hobby project. It was doing part-time. It was not something that we, were into full-time. The great thing about this experience was putting our ideas out there in the world and, just seeing them come to life in this gaming world. It was just amazing. 2009 was the year that we got an acquisition offer from an Australian company, and that was the day we decided to sell off this company or this, server, and technically that was our first exit in the startup space.
Yeah, I remember you were pursuing filmmaking at the time, and I was in med school. So I come from a family of doctors. I have 26 doctors in my family. So for me, medicine was the only career option I thought of. My parents were kind enough. They gave me opportunity. They said, "Do you want to do something else?" And I honestly didn't, because I didn't know any other option, and I didn't think of any other career option. So while I was in med school, I started exploring more things, this Ragnarok server being one of the cases. I started exploring opportunity, and there came a time that I was spending more time on my computer than in the hospital. And that's when I knew I wanted to pursue something in tech. So as soon as I got done with med school, I moved to San Francisco. I was staying in this place called the Hacker House, which was just a collection of the most amazing people I've ever met. There were programmers from Apple, Google, Lyft, Microsoft, Uber. There were startup founders who were pursuing their dreams, who were pitching to investors. I got so absorbed into the entire startup ecosystem. The learning that I got from there was brilliant. And that's where I also met my co-founders, moved to Los Angeles to co-found my own social media startup.
And while he was doing his thing in California, I was working back in the Bollywood industry, building my name as a director, as you call it. And back then I was, got an opportunity to work on a dozen feature films. And using that experience and that knowledge, I landed a job as being the in-house director at Leo Burnett, which was a great experience because when it started, we, created around 300 commercials and worked with 150 brands. The great thing that time was, just learning how we can tell these stories and how to bring all these ideas together and just keep working to create content, on a large scale. That was the time I used to, honestly like to do some hobby projects on the side. I always like making some experimental films.
Yeah, what he calls his hobby projects actually won him the Tribeca Film Festival and the Beijing Film Festival, guys.
But the important thing is the objective was never to win. It was to go out there and create something out of nothing by having limited or no resources, And the testament to that fact is that you ended up editing the Tribeca Film Festival winning film and you acted in the Beijing one.
Yeah, I think as you rightly said, we learned to work with the resources that we had. So when we didn't have an editor for the film, I taught myself editing. We went ahead and we made that film. When we didn't have an actor for the Beijing Film Festival entry, I ended up acting under protest, and we ended up doing that ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's that attitude of, not giving up, of always going out there and chasing your dream. There are so many things that we learned, even though we did go into another career path, we always dialed back down and came back to find and focus on the things that we really love doing and chase that. Because at the end of the day, that's what, really makes us happy. I remember there was a time in my life where all I wanted to do was play video games and I could think nothing, beyond that. So much so that I actually applied in a game design school and I got in. And even though I got in, I didn't accept it because it was a degree course and it was a diploma and not a degree course. So that's the reason, I couldn't follow that because gaming was not what it is now. And after that, I did do another degree that made me fall in love with filmmaking.
Yeah, so I remember while he was applying to game design school, I was exploring opportunities as well, but I never ended up pursuing anything in game designing. But I did end up doing Stanford's online computer science course, and then later ended up going on campus, and I did the innovative leadership at the Stanford Graduate School of Business.
Yeah, eventually we fought against all the odds and followed our passion and our dreams and just chased what we really love doing. And that's what has brought us here, back to the world of gaming, exactly where we started.
Yeah, I think that's the most important lesson here is no matter what you do, follow your passion, follow your dream. It doesn't matter if your career takes you one place. It doesn't matter if you don't get support or find the people that support you. Just keep working towards what you believe in and what you love.
I think one great thing that we, really love to say and, talk about is we, over the years, have developed a kind of attitude where we treat everything that we do in life as a game. So imagine you get everyday tasks in your routine, some quests, some objectives that you need to clear, which will help you proceed or complete one level. And all you need to do is keep clearing levels one after the other till you, encounter some hurdles or some enemies or some mini bosses and some boss fights that you have to defeat so that you can move on to the next. The important thing is to have the right attitude and the right mindset and make sure that you approach every task and every obstacle with the right, courage. And those are the things that help you clear the next level and make you level up.
Yeah, I think that's a great attitude to have for entrepreneurs in general or for your life, where if you treat it as a video game and start passing everything as a level, that's great because entrepreneurs at the end of the day are kind of like magicians because you take an idea and you take something that doesn't exist and you will it into existence. You create something that doesn't exist.
Yeah, honestly, guys, everyone out there, just chase your dreams and do what you love because whether you like it or not, it will find you and it will not leave you. That's what we did, and we really encourage you to just follow your dreams and believe in yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to end with a quote from Helen Keller, like, friends, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.